everybody. Today we are debating whether or not science points to theism, and we are starting right now. Ladies and gentlemen, thrilled to have you here for this epic debate as we have two guests here today, and we are very happy to have them. They have their links in the description, as well as Tom has his in order, as he always requests. Very specific guy. We love him, but we love both of our guests. We appreciate them being here. Thanks for your patience as well, as we had a slight delay. We are pumped to have you. Want to let you know, if this is your first time here, consider hitting that subscribe button, as we're trying to build an eclectic community, and we want to hear all perspectives. Also, it'll give you a chance to get reminders of when we have future debates coming up. We even have one tonight, so that'll be really interesting. We will have a Christian and a fellow Christian debate on whether or not the Christian perspective can incorporate aliens with an atheist guest interlocutor who will be asking questions. So, with that, we will now start up the open discussion, as we will usually, as always, let the affirmative give a kind of starting little opening, and that's untimed, so just as long as they think that they need to give their position. And then from there, just move right into the open conversation. If you would like to ask a question during the discussion, feel free to shoot it into the live chat. I will pull those questions out, and then, super chats. What we will do is, if you have a super chat, it can also be a comment that you make toward one of the speakers that they would get the chance to make a response to during the Q&A, and it also goes to the very top of the list for the Q&A. So with that, very excited to have these two here. Travis, we will let you get the ball rolling, just giving kind of that opening kind of introductory statement on what your thesis is. Thanks for being here.
Okay, well, thank you, James. My name is Travis. I've been a Christian for about 2 years. I'm what they call a theistic evolutionist, and I adhere to what you call mainstream science. And so would you like me to go ahead and begin my opening statement?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So to begin, I think it should be noted that the scientific consensus on models like loop quantum gravity, quantum field theory, string theory, and these are, the scientific consensus is right now we don't know. So any proposition of these models at this time is in the realm of speculation. Okay. So what I would like to focus on is the universe itself, such as, and Tom, I'd like to get into this more during the discussion, is the 1 in a billion asymmetry between matter and antimatter. Then dependent upon this, we have to have the exact precision we have in the strong and weak nuclear force constants, gravitational force constant, electromagnetic force constant, the ratio of the electromagnetic force to the gravitational force, ratio of protons to electrons, electron to proton mass, and especially the precision in the cosmological constant. I'd say to get into this a little bit further, a good example is of the strong nuclear force. Okay, so if this force were too weak, multi-protein nuclei would not hold together. Okay, in that case, hydrogen would be the only element in the universe. Now, on the other hand, if the strong nuclear force was even slightly greater than what we observe in the cosmos, protons and neutrons would have such an affinity for one another, they would not remain alone. They would all find themselves attached to other protons and neutrons. And in such a universe, there would be no hydrogen, only heavy elements. Now, as we all know from basic chemistry, life would be impossible without hydrogen. In the case of the weak nuclear force constant, if it were any stronger than what we observe, then the universe's matter would be quickly converted into heavy elements. Likewise, if any weaker, then the universe's matter would remain in the form of just the lightest elements. Either way, essential life elements like carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus would either not exist or would exist in ratios too extreme for molecules to be built. So at whatever level we examine the building blocks of life, like electrons, nucleons, atoms, or molecules, the physics of the universe must be meticulously fine-tuned and to focus on the cosmological constant. If the universe expanded too quickly, matter would disperse so efficiently that none of it will be close enough to form galaxies. And if no galaxies, obviously no life. Okay, so if the expansion rate expanded too fast after the Big Bang, the universe would have collapsed back on itself. So essentially, without such precision, we wouldn't even have a universe at all. Now, the dark energy density must be even more finely tuned. The original sources of dark energy must be at least 122 orders of magnitude larger than the amount astronomers now detect. This implies that somehow the sources must cancel one another so as to leave just one part in 10 to the 122, which is probably one of the most extreme examples of fine-tuning. In fact, this is even endorsed by atheist Lawrence Krauss. And also, I think it's important to note that fine-tuning is not limited to the physical constants of the universe. When we look at Earth itself, we see that the late heavy bombardment period, plate tectonics, volcanism, even hurricanes and natural disasters must be precisely as they are for life to be here. Okay, so another thing I would like to focus on probably is the greenhouse gas removal. So in the erosion process, water from rain, streams, and mist catalyzes the chemical reaction between silicates and atmospheric carbon dioxide. The end products are silicon dioxide and carbonates. So to get the necessary amount of exposed silicate, efficient plate tectonics must build up islands and continents. The rate of silicate erosion depends on the 7 factors of Earth's rotation rate, the average global rainfall, average global temperature, the chemical composition of Earth's atmosphere, and the total area of Earth's landmasses, also the average slope. Okay, so after that, we got organisms like photosynthetic plants, bacteria, and a methane-consuming bacteria known as methanogens, which take carbon dioxide, water, and methane from the atmosphere, chemically transform them into sugar, starches, fats, proteins, carbohydrates. Now, if any of these get buried by erosion, plate tectonics, or other phenomena before they decay or get eaten by other organisms who then get buried before they decay, then greenhouse gases are converted into biodeposits through physical and chemical processes operating in the Earth's crust. So fine-tuning the removal of these greenhouse gases to compensate for the increase in solar luminosity requires the fine-tuning of all 7 factors that govern silicate erosion, plus all the factors that govern the abundance, diversity, growth, decay, extinction, and burial of organisms. Now, all this must be finely tuned and timed throughout the past 3.5 billion years. So I would say that this continual fine-tuning over such an extended period of time challenges any reasonable naturalistic explanation that Tom will be able to offer. And it would also indicate that there is a causal agent behind Earth's life that anticipated in intricate detail the future physical and chemical conditions of the sun and the Earth. Such a degree of fine-tuning shows a clear intentionality for advanced life. And as we know, states of intentionality are the product of a mind, which cannot be attributed to chance, naturalistic pantheism, etc. Okay, now as a student myself, this gets constantly drilled into me, is that we need to have a model with future predictability. And as such, if my conclusion is true, that there is an intelligent causal agent behind the laws of physics that intended for life to be here, as time goes by, we're going to expect to find more and more evidence of finely tuned characteristics. Now, if naturalism is true, as time goes by, we would expect to find less and less evidence of fine-tuning. In fact, there's a study, some research that I've done, it's very interesting, that in our solar system alone, what were 2 perimeters in 1966 grew to 8 by the end of the 1960s, to 23 by the end of the 1970s, to 30 by the end of the 1980s, and to 123 by 2000. And I have an interesting quote here based on all this from Dr. Francis Collins. There are good reasons to believe in God, including the existence of mathematical principles and order in creation. They are positive reasons based on knowledge rather than the default assumptions based on a lack of knowledge. Now, since this is a scientific debate to which Tom agreed, he will need to provide a model which shows atheism is more probable and that this quote is indeed false. Thanks.
All right, so you said essentially what your argument seems to be, it's improbable, therefore God. Is that right?
No, actually, Tom, well, the improbability is a very small factor. What I'm saying is that if naturalism is true, as time goes on, we're going to find less and less evidence of the fine-tuning.
Why?
And
there's no naturalism. Stop. Nothing in naturalism indicates that. Why would you even say that? Naturalism has no statement on that at all.
What I'm saying, Tom, is that if Christianity or theism is indeed true, As time goes by, this is a testable, predictable model that we're going to be able to see more and more evidence of the fine-tuning as time and research go on. And that is indeed what is happening.
That has nothing to do with either theism or naturalism. Fine-tuning is just things are improbable. Okay, so things are improbable, but that could be explained by design or by random chance or by determinism. That doesn't indicate anything. So as far as I can tell, your argument is things are improbable, therefore God.
I'm sorry, Tom, you're quite wrong. If I can show evidence that as time goes by, these factors increase with time and research, that shows a probability, and all these factors, in fact, there's over like 1,200 factors that must be precisely as they are for life to be here. That
Again,
shows
none of that indicates God. You're not understanding here. So if I can show the sun will rise tomorrow.
Okay, so I'm going to.
One second. Forgive me. I hate to interrupt you, Travis. I promise I'll let you have a response back. I just want to make sure that Tom has adequate time to give his kind of initial reaction, and then we'll come back and promise.
So fine-tuning is just improbability. It's improbable something will happen. So if we see an event like there's a 1 in a million chance of it happening, you're going to call that fine-tuning because it's 1 in a million. But guess what? That 1 in a million could be like a coin landing on its edge. There's like a 50% chance of heads and or 50% chance of tails with a 0.0000001% chance it lands on its edge. So it's a 1 in a million occurrence happening.
Mm-hmm.
But if we have a dice with a million sides, any side it lands on is a 1 in a million chance of occurring. Both of them have the same probability. Now you could say if we found a coin landing on its edge in the middle of a table, we'd say that's probably designed. A human probably did that because one of them is significantly more unlikely than the other one. But on a dice, they all have the exact same probability, all 1 in a million. And it could be the case that if you have a dice with 2 of the sides filed together, that side will have a probability of 1 in half a million because it's 2 in a million. But that is more likely than any of the other possibilities. So just saying something is unlikely tells us nothing about whether it's designed or caused by random chance or caused by determinism. So all you've said is improbable, therefore God, which does not follow, because the improbability can also be explained by random chance, like the dice with a million sides landing on any side, or it could be explained by it being the most likely case, like a dice with 2 sides filed together. So nothing you've actually said indicates design at all. You just said their stuff is improbable. Like, okay.
Okay, thanks, Tom. But with all due respect, I am going to have to remind you that this is a scientific debate, so philosophical personal objections are absolutely meaningless. Now, what I would like to do is quote some pretty prominent physicists who disagree with you, as it were. Okay, so to quote Freeman Dyson, the more I examine the universe and study the details of its architecture, the more evidence I find that the universe, in some sense, must have known that we were coming. Okay, astrophysicist Paul Davies states, it seems as though somebody has fine-tuned nature's numbers to make the universe. Also, he says, the impression of design is overwhelming. In fact, even Lawrence Krauss concedes with regard to the cosmological constant, it would require the most extreme fine-tuning in the universe.
Right, I agree with all of that. Fine-tuning does not mean design. Fine-tuning is just, it's improbable. So again, none of that indicates a God. None of that indicates there was a designer.
Okay, Tom, this is a scientific debate, so you're going to need to produce evidential data that refutes my position. You specifically
just like you did. So I can quote a physicist, Nima Arkani-Hammad, who says, like most physicists, I'm an atheist because most physicists are atheists, which means nothing in physics. The majority consensus in physics is that no, this does not indicate design. So if you want to give quotes, my side wins. Now, to go back to the math and the physics, like I said, no, again, this is objective fact. Most physicists are atheists. Done. Over. So your quotes are done. Now, going back to the math and the science, none of it indicates design. All you said is that there is some improbable thing, and you've assumed that it indicates design. Improbability does not indicate design, as I proved with my analogy with the dice. It could be design, or it could be chance, or it could be determined. So improbability does not indicate theism. You've made this silly assumption that because it's improbable, therefore God. There's nothing that correlates those two. You need to actually show that. That's a part of the scientific argument. You would have to actually show that the improbability indicates design as opposed to natural random chances or determinism. You can't just assume that. That's not science.
Okay, so essentially you're saying that most physicists are atheists?
Correct. Just a quote from Nima Arkani-Hammad, like most physicists, I'm an atheist.
Okay, actually, that's pretty interesting. You would mention him. In fact, his argument from digital physics could be very compatible with theism. But
Yeah, you can make
there's a
anything
problem.
compatible with theism, just make stuff up. But no, like most physicists, he's an atheist.
Okay, that's interesting. I mean, I've seen different, polls. Like Pew Research has said that 51% of physicists believe in a God of some kind. Some have said 2/3. Some have said only 37%. However, that's quite irrelevant. I mean, look at the agnostic position, like Roger Penrose.
No. I mean, that was kind of the
please
point I
let
was
me
going
finish.
for. No, I apologize just to interrupt. That was kind of the point I was going for. All of your quotes are irrelevant. None of those are evidence. So I can just give more quotes. That was kind of the point. So go back to the evidence.
Okay, Tom, can I finish what I was saying?
Go for it.
Okay, your statement about the majority of physicists being atheists and so forth. First of all, I would like to see some kind of evidence for that. If you could provide a source, that would be fantastic. But even with that being said, that's simply irrelevant. We have prominent scientists on both sides of the fence. And in fact, with you appealing to the atheism of certain science, it's a little self-contradictory to your own position as a philosopher. In fact, like Stephen Hawking said, philosophy is dead. It's kind of funny. Sean Curry said that you could put three philosophers.
I apologize for interrupting again. Again, I already granted this. The quotes aren't evidence. That was the point. The reason I gave that quote was to show that your quotes are totally irrelevant. I agree with you. The consensus is not evidence here. Just saying that lots of people believe it, either on our side or your side or my side. It doesn't matter. I agree. Go to the evidence.
Just to hear.
Again. Tom, you're making these personal objections. You're providing no scientific data. I'm a little disappointed. You knew this was going to be a scientific debate.
No, I already presented the evidence.
Excuse me. You need to present a competing model that would show that my evidence is in fact false.
No, I don't. You don't need a competing model. You held the burden of proof. You're making the positive claim. I don't need to show anything.
No, sir. This is a scientific. This is a scientific debate, and we share an equal burden of proof to present competing models.
Wrong. That is not how science works. You're misrepresenting science. If you make a theory of phlogiston,
Tom, you don't even know
No. Stop,
you're simply okay. You're making philosophical objections to scientific data that shows a complete lack of.
No, this is basic science. This is just basic science. If you present something, you have to show evidence for it. I don't have to present an alternative. No alternative is required on my part at all.
Yes, Tom, you do.
I don't. That's not science. That's wrong. Okay? I do not ever need to present an alternative.
Tom, I'm getting a little bit irritated at you. Quite frankly, you're being very irrational. Now, I need you to present a scientific model.
No, you don't. You don't understand science. Stop. Science does not require you to present an alternative.
That's a common default of yours. Whenever somebody disagrees with you, you say they just don't understand. It's completely fallacious.
Stop.
You need to do a little bit better and present a model.
Not an argument.
I hate interrupting.
No, I'm sorry, Tom. You're not presenting a scientific argument.
Guys, okay, hold on. Please don't make me mute you, either of you. We appreciate your passion. So there's nothing worse than a boring debate. I promise you that. So I'd rather it be like this than once in a great while we have people come on and debate things where I'm like, it doesn't seem like they care. So, but if you could do me a favor, just so it doesn't get too out of control, just keeping in mind to try to remember that we'll definitely let each of you get a response. I promise that. So, with that, is there a point, maybe we'll circle back to this one. Is there another point that we could discuss as like one of the main pillars for your argument, Travis?
Well, no. This is a crucial point. Science does not ever require you to present an alternative hypothesis. All of the burden rests on the person. Stop. Don't interrupt. Science does not ever require you to present an alternative hypothesis. If you make a theory like phlogiston and you want to say that heat is some new particle that's released on when things burn, you need to show evidence for that. I don't ever need to present an alternative. Never does that need to happen. You need to present evidence to support your case. Now, my main argument here is that you are saying something is unlikely, therefore design. That does not follow. I can prove that with a simple mathematical analysis. It's improbable. The improbability of a coin landing on its edge is 1 in a million. Is that design? Sure. Could it be explained by random chance? Can you get a 1 in a million event occurring by random chance? Yes, you can. Can you get a 1 in a million event occurring by probability and design? Yes, you can. So does improbability indicate design? No. because it can be random chance or determined. Neither. So your assumption, your fundamental assumption is that improbable, therefore must be designed, is false. I just proved it false because the improbability can be explained by random chance.
All right, we'll go back to Travis just to be sure that we have that back and forth volley. Travis, do you have a rebuttal ready?
Yes, as a matter of fact, okay. So Tom's given this analogy of rolling the dice, etc. The problem with that is the number of factors which must be connected in order for life to be here. So it's not a simple rolling of the dice or one or two things. We're talking over 1,000 features that have to be precise and come together. And I would say that with all of these, it's a clear intentionality that that the universe was designed for life. And there are several physicists who agree with me.
Okay, can you give me a number? Just give me a number. Just the probability of life? It doesn't need to be accurate. Just give me a number.
Okay, well, the strong and weak nuclear force constant, or I know over 1 in a billion. That they must be precisely as they are.
Let's go with that one. 1 in a billion. Okay, we can get 1 in a billion. We have a coin with a width of one.
Well, it's actually quite significantly.
It doesn't matter. The number does not matter. It's completely irrelevant. So
sure.
We go with 1 in a billion. Now I can get a 1 in a billion probability by making a coin with a surface area of this edge of 1 in a billion. So the coin landing on its edge has a chance of 1 in a billion. I can make a dice with a billion sides, and every single side has a chance of 1 in a billion. I can make a dice with 2 billion sides, file 2 of the sides together, and the chance on that side will be 1 in a billion. So the chances are equal in all 3 cases, but in one case, like the coin, it's the least likely outcome. In the case of the dice, it's exactly the same as every other outcome. And in the case of the dice that has 2 billion sides, it's the most likely outcome. So it could be that probability of 1 in a billion, and this applies to any number you give. It doesn't matter what number you give. The probability of that is the same in every 3 examples. The designed example, like the coin, the random example, like the dice, or the determined example, like the dice with the 2 shaved sides. So you've made this faulty assumption that somehow the big number indicates the first example, but not the other 2, even though they have the exact same numbers in all 3 cases.
Okay, well, Tom, I'm sorry. There's just a great number of physicists that disagree with you. And the problem I want to address with that analogy is that it's not just a roll of the dice of, say, the strong nuclear force constant or the weak nuclear force constant. It's over 1,000 features in our universe and in our solar system and planet that must be precisely as they are. These over 1,000 dices must be precise and connected in order for us to be here. Now, I'm saying that shows a case of intentionality. Now, you personally or philosophically disagree with me, and that's fine, but you've presented no scientific data to refute that.
Okay, so going back, remember, I gave a quote from a physicist that disagrees. So quoting physicists...
Well, I gave a quote from physicists that do agree.
I agree. That's why I gave it. The quotes don't matter. So saying you have a quote isn't evidence. You can just stop saying that for the rest of the debate because it'll never be evidence.
Hey, you know what? Don't talk to me like that, Tom. I'm serious.
No, I'm serious. You need to hear it because it's the truth. Now, going back to my example.
Tom, you know nothing about science. All you can do is make personal objections. You're presenting no evidence to the contrary.
No. I know significantly more than you do on this, which you've just demonstrated.
Oh, of course you do, Tom.
Let's go back to the argument. So again, you said there's lots of different factors. It's not just one dice. Now, if you have 2 dice,
over 1,000.
Great. So if you have 2 dice with 6 sides and you roll them both, that's the same as rolling 1 dice with 36 sides. So any number you give, you can represent it with 1 dice. You just make it a bigger number. So that doesn't work. So it doesn't matter how big the number is. You can make any number of any size. You can represent it as a coin with the width of that size, 1 in a billion, or a dice with 1 billion sides, or a dice with 2 billion sides and 2 of the sides filed together. Each of these have the exact same probability. It doesn't matter what number you use. You can make it as big as you want, 1 in a billion, trillion. You're going to get the same thing. No matter how unlikely it is, it could be explained by design. It can be explained by random chance, and it can be explained by determined causes. So no, just saying big number does not indicate design. That's the problem.
Okay, thank you. I'm not simply saying big number, therefore design. I'm saying big numbers connected with over 1,000 different parameters, 1,000 different features that must be precisely fine-tuned. So
Yes,
I don't
that's a
see
big
that
number. That's
applying because there's a connection between each one. They have to be precise themselves and precisely connected.
Remember my 2 dice example. If you have 2 dice that have 6 sides and you roll them, whatever chance you get is 1 in
Tom,
36.
if you're not going to present any scientific evidence, what would you like to discuss?
Again, this is scientific evidence. You're not understanding it. That's kind of the problem.
Mhm.
So again,
Yeah, of
doesn't
course,
matter.
Tom.
All you said is big number, therefore design. That's your entire argument. Big number, design. That's your argument.
No.
That's the problem. It's not.
Uh,
I can prove that false in like 5 seconds. Big number does not equal design.
Okay, Tom. I would like to know scientifically how you would explain the greenhouse gas removal under a strictly naturalistic process. Can we do that?
Could be determined or could be random chance.
Explain.
I don't need to.
Yeah. Oh goodness.
Again, I covered this.
Okay.
I don't need to present any alternatives at all. You hold the burden of proof. And I just your entire
No, sir.
argument.
This is competing models. I made that
Nope.
clear before
Nope.
the debate, and now you've gone back on your word, and that's fine. I didn't expect too much, but I was wondering if you could describe.
No. I never said that. I never said competing models.
Stop,
I never.
stop.
No.
I'm
No, you called me a liar. You called me a liar. I got to correct this. I never said anything about competing models.
I'm sorry. I'm not calling you a liar. However, in this instance, you're being very dishonest.
No.
You specifically
I need to correct
agreed
this. So I
to
need
a
to
scientific debate and to.
Yes. So I agreed to a scientific debate. Nothing in science ever says you have to present a competing model. That is not in science anywhere, ever.
This was in the Facebook messages that we communicated with, and you specifically agreed. Now, okay.
No. What
So
are you talking about?
just
I agreed to a scientific debate. Nothing in science says you have to indicate competing models. That's not
okay,
a part of
Tom.
science.
So, from naturalistic processes, how do you account for the rate of silicon erosion that depends on the 7 factors, of Earth's rotation rate, global rainfall, global temperature, and so forth? How do you explain that from a natural process?
Could be random chance, could be determined.
Finely tuned, that's just tuned for the increase in solar luminosity throughout the last 3.5 billion years. Explain that naturally.
Could be random chance, could be determined.
Oh, goodness. So you have no scientific rebuttal, just it could be random chance.
I just rebutted your entire argument. You've just lost.
Tom, you lost. You can't even present any scientific data.
That's because I just destroyed your argument in the very first step.
No, Tom, you just destroyed your own intellectual position.
This is pretty simple. If you say there is one option, this thing is evidence of this other thing. Remember my box analogy? If you have a box that weighs 2 pounds, you don't know what's in it.
Yeah, let's please get into that.
Yeah, because you don't understand it. So if you have a box, if you have a box, it weighs 2 pounds. Is that evidence of a rabbit? No, because it could be a lizard or a coffee mug or a weight. So we have some big number. If you don't know how interconnected the big number is, you can make it a bigger number if you want. That same big number could be explained by design or chance or determined forces, which means it's not indicative of design, just like the 2 pounds isn't indicative of a rabbit. This is really simple.
Okay, so where I would disagree with you on that, Tom, is I would say that science opens the box, takes measurements, looks, and determines what it is. And what I'm saying is that as time goes by and we see these factors increase and increase for the Anthropic Principle, it is evidence indicative of design. Now, if naturalism were true, we would expect to find less and less finely tuned parameters as time and research goes on.
This is the part I'm asking about. Nothing in naturalism says that. Like, where are you getting this, that naturalism somehow says it's not going to be fine-tuned? Like, there's nothing that says that.
Because as evidence goes by, if we do find more and more and more features, would you agree that it is evidence of the Anthropic Principle and fine-tuning?
The Anthropic
Or would you just simply say it's chance?
The Anthropic Principle has nothing to do with God. I don't know why you're using it in that context. So the fact that we find
the finely tuned parameters in the universe for life to be here.
Yes.
And I would say that's indicative of design. And there are a lot of physicists who agree, which, you won't accept.
Again, I've already covered that argument. That argument is done. So going back, the Anthropic Principle just means that we have to.
Hold on one second. We just got to give Tom a chance to respond here.
So the Anthropic Principle just means we have to account for the fact that all the parameters need to be this way to account for life. Now, I agree with that. So the Anthropic Principle is a real thing. Does it indicate design? No, which I just proved. The same thing can be explained by chance or design. And I actually have lots of quotes from physicists like Stephen Hawking explaining this, but I don't need to present that because you haven't granted the very first, most obvious premise of the entire debates. This can be explained without design. So how is this indicative of design? You said, well, because if we find more fine-tuning things, that's indicative of design, and if we find less fine-tuning, that's indicative of naturalism, but none of that follows. Naturalism says nothing about whether or not there's going to be or not going to be fine-tuning. So I don't have nothing you've said is actually evidence. You've just asserted big number, therefore design.
Well, Tom, I'm rather impressed that you've debunked all these physicists that agree with the fine-tuning, and you without even presenting any scientific evidence. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it is. I can just present quotes of other atheists or other physicists who are mostly atheists. I mean, if you want to present quotes, I can present more quotes. That cancels each other out. Not a good argument. So
Tom,
again,
we've gone over this. We have prominent scientists on both sides, and I would like to see a source because I've seen so many different polls about what physicists believe. However, that's irrelevant to the evidence.
Exactly.
And
why I told you this. Stop giving quotes.
Tom, I haven't finished. Okay, you can present no contradictory evidence scientifically. You're making a personal philosophical objection, which in science is utterly meaningless. You need to present some kind of scientific evidence, and you're saying you can't do that or you won't do that. So, where do you want to go from here?
No, again, you presented no evidence. All you said is here is a scientific fact. Like, yes, there is fine tuning. Agreed. Is that indicative of design? No, nothing. There's no connection between fine tuning, therefore design. That's the problem. You just
that's just your personal view. I'm sorry, that's ad hoc. You need to present some kind of evidence that would debunk the fine tuning. Not talking about dice. I mean scientifically.
No. Again, so your entire argument is big number, therefore design. And I'm saying, how do you get from big number to design? I can say big number, therefore random chance, or big number, therefore determined. So how do you show it's actually design? You haven't told me anything. You've just said big number, therefore design. How do you explain it? How do you explain the connection?
Thank you. Okay, what I've said is with regard to big number design is that when we have over 1,000 features, once again, I've covered this, that must be precise in their precision and connected to one another in order for life to be here. I'm saying that that's indicative of design. In fact, everything in our universe must be exactly as it is for life to be here. Now, you're saying that's random chance, and I would say it's more probable that it's a state of intentionality.
So again, if we were saying that simply it's improbable, therefore design, then the universe is probably designed for astatine because they need to be more fine-tuned for astatine than they do for life. So going back to my example, like it doesn't matter how many interconnected things you have. It's all still big number. Like if I roll a bunch of dice, a bunch of 6-sided dice, that's the same as rolling one dice with lots of sides. They're the same thing. So saying you have lots of interconnected things, like 1,000 interconnected dice, that all need to line 6s or whatever, is the exact same as rolling one big dice with lots of numbers. Those are the same thing. So you've just gone back into my analogy, big number, therefore design. How do you get from big number to design?
Like I've said, with the interconnectedness and the extreme probability that you're mentioning, I would say it's more reasonable that it's indicative of design.
Do you know what a gambler's fallacy is?
Tom, can I ask you something?
Sure.
Okay. Are you aware of what would happen if we didn't have the precise decay of the proton? Life would literally be terminated by the release of radiation, or we'd have insufficient matter in the universe for life. Please account for this naturalistically.
Chance or determined causes can both account for it. So again, do you know what a gambler's fallacy is?
Yes.
So the probability of rolling 6 dice that all roll 6s is the exact same as rolling 6 to the power of 6 or whatever. One dice with that many sides. Do you understand those are the same thing?
Tom, I understand that you're presenting philosophy to science when we agreed to a scientific debate.
This is a scientific question. If we roll 2 dice with 6 sides, doesn't matter what they roll, the probability of that is the same as rolling 1 dice with 36 sides. Do you understand that?
I understand what you're saying, yes.
Okay, so if we have 1,000 dice that all have a probability of 1 in a million, like you said, there's like 1,000 constants that are all interconnected, they all need to roll the same thing, right? That's your position, correct?
Yeah, the same. Yeah, they have to be in a precise, and connected. Yes, yeah.
Correct. So let's call all of those each individual things dice, and they all have 1,000 sides. And so if we roll all of them and they all go sixes, that's the exact same as rolling one big dice with that many sides. Just multiply the number of dice to the power of the number of sides, and that in a dice with that many sides is the exact same probability. Do you understand that?
Yeah, and I understand. I don't have that much faith to believe in that great of chance. With the interconnectedness, I simply don't agree, Tom.
Okay, so the probability is the same, which means if you have like a coin with the width of that, whatever it is, 1 in a billion, that probability is the same as a dice with a billion sides landing on any side, which is the same as the probability of a dice with 2 billion sides and one side filed together landing on that side. So the fact that it's really improbable, like a big number, all of the thousands of things connected, it could be the least likely outcome by chance, like a coin on a table. It's really unlikely that a coin just falling is going to land on its edge. So it's probably reasonable to infer the coin was designed. Somebody deliberately put it on its edge. Or the probability could be explained by a dice with a billion sides landing on any side. So that's just random chance. It's just
random
the exact same probability as any other outcome it could have had. No difference there at all. Or it could be like a dice with 2 billion sides and 2 of the sides filed together, and it landing on that side, which is actually the most likely thing to occur by chance. If you have a 2 billion sided dice and 2 of the sides are filed together, that side is the most likely thing to occur by chance, without design, just by random chance. It's the most likely outcome. So 1 in a billion could be the most likely outcome to occur by chance without design. Okay, so the big number, there's a big number, the probabilities of things occurring, all of the fine-tuning we need to having, big number, very unlikely, could be the most likely thing to occur by chance because of the naturalistic forces behind it. We don't know. Could be the least likely, could be the most likely, could be exactly the same as everything else. We don't know. You seem to be saying that it must be the least likely because you've assumed it to be, therefore it can only be explained by design. Big number, therefore design. Now the big number could be the most likely thing to occur. For example, all of the boundary conditions could be interconnected by some undiscovered law of nature that we don't know about yet, actually making life the most likely thing to occur. So you've made the assumption, big number, therefore design, and that assumption isn't supported.
Okay, Tom, do you think perhaps we could agree on this, that I'm saying that the evidence indicates design with all the factors and all the probability, and you're saying that you would rather go on the assumption that it's pure chance? And then we'll get into the...
So I'm saying that you believe it's design, and I'm saying it could be design, or it could be chance, or it could be determined. We have no evidence one way or the other. That's my position.
Okay, and it would be determined by undiscovered law, correct?
Essentially, yeah.
Okay, so the problem with an undiscovered law is, let's say we find an undiscovered law for complete naturalism, okay? We could also just as likely find an undiscovered law that points towards theism. So as an argument against theism, that simply just doesn't work.
That would mean it doesn't work in the other way too.
Right, they would cancel each other out, therefore it's not a consistent argument.
Congratulations, you now just understood my argument. Yes, good job. That's yes, exactly. It's the same thing with the fine-tuning. The same thing with the fine-tuning. So instead of applying it to this hypothetical law we haven't discovered yet, now apply that exact same reasoning to the current fine-tuning we know about, and you get my argument. Yes.
No, what I'm saying is your argument is irrelevant because saying an undiscovered law that would cancel each other out. What I'm saying is what we can observe and what we do observe with all these perimeters, over 1,000, once again, point to design. And okay, I'm saying that it points to design, and you would rather go on the assumption that it's just pure chance.
No, I've assumed it. So my question is how does it point to design? You keep saying fine-tuning, big number, therefore design. And I'm saying, no, that could be explained by chance or determined processes. So how exactly do you get to the design thing? Like, where's the evidence of the design?
I'm saying that the evidence for design is more probable than the extremely... I'm sorry?
How is it more probable? Like, how is it more probable? You're saying okay, due
to the astronomical, I mean, in science, any factor that's over 10 to the power of 55, I believe is considered absurd. And we would be well over that. I mean, the cosmological constant alone is 10 to the power of 122. So I'm saying it's more.
Apologies. That's not the case. One example would be we can get an electron from the Andromeda galaxy, has a lower probability of getting to our eye than that number. So it would be absurd by what you just said. Nothing in science ever says that there's some magic number that anything beyond that is absurd. It doesn't happen. But again, so I mean, I want to clarify this. So your position is that big number, therefore design. So we can get a big number, like 1 in a billion. The number doesn't matter. The 1 in a billion can be explained by design, but it can also be explained by chance, and it can also be explained by determinism. So your argument is big number, therefore design. It's somehow more reasonable to conclude design than random chance or determined processes. And I'm trying to figure out how, because the big number on its own doesn't do that. Just a big number doesn't indicate design. You need something else.
Okay, you know what's interesting? Have you heard Hugh Ross's analogy about stacking dimes up to the moon, and the probability would be, okay, you paint one red dime and you stack the dimes up to the moon. That's the same probability we get with this random chance you're mentioning of just a few factors.
Okay.
I'm saying I don't have that much confidence, Tom. I'm saying I go with design. That's what the evidence is pointing to.
Again, you haven't explained how. You said big number, therefore design, but the big number can be explained by chance or determinism. So I'm still not following your argument. How do you go from big number to design?
Tom, I'm saying it's more likely. I'm giving the probability.
Explain how it's more likely. I don't get it. Like, for example, if I gave you a number, 1 in a trillion, now is it more likely that 1 in a trillion is a coin on its edge, or a dice that landed on one side, or a dice with 2 trillion sides and 2 sides filed together? Which is the most likely if I just tell you 1 in a trillion?
Okay, Tom, that's not the point. That's not the point I'm getting at.
That's what the point I'm getting at.
Well, I don't care. I mean, you presented no scientific rebuttal, just philosophical.
That is a scientific rebuttal.
I'm sorry, that's complete nonsense, Tom. Can you present any kind of evidence? Anything?
How is that not? I'm not following. I'm not following here. So I'm not understanding how that isn't evidence. So right. So you have a big number. Now you're saying the big number, the improbability of all the laws, is somehow indicative of theism. It's more likely to be explained by theism. That's your argument, right?
No, Tom. I want to go back to the dime analogy that you paint one red, you stack them up to the moon, and you get blindfolded. You pick out that one red dime, as Hugh Ross has pointed out. That's the probability of just one factor. I believe the cosmological constant.
Okay, big number. I grant big numbers. Yes, I agree.
Yes.
But big number does not indicate design. So again, if I give you a big number,
I'm sorry, Tom. I disagree with you.
So again, that's your claim. You're claiming that it somehow does, and I'm asking you to explain how it does. So again, let's just go with any big number. Pick any big number, like Graham's number.
I'm going on probability theory, Tom.
That's great. You still need to explain how.
Okay, let me put it to you this way. We can't know anything for sure in science. I'm sure you know that.
Yes.
So I'm saying that there's pointers towards theism. I'm not saying we can prove it. I'm not saying that these features are therefore theism. I'm saying that, in my view, they are indicative of an intelligence that wanted life to be here.
I understand your argument. I'm trying to explain or ask you how. Like, you keep saying there's indicators towards theism, but so far all you
probability theory.
Yes, I'm using probability theory, but the probability theory indicates theism no more than the other possibilities. So the 3 possibilities here are design, chance, and determined. The 3 possibilities are design, chance, and determined. So far, the only evidence you presented is big number. Now, big number can be explained by all 3 of them equally. There's no difference in probability here. It's just 33, 33, 33. So where is the thing that... Go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, what I'm trying to say, and this is it, okay, just bear with me, Tom. Work with me. What I'm saying is that all these perimeters together that must be precisely as they are, they're contingent. They could have been anyway, and that they're in such a way as to permit life. I'm saying that's an evidential pointer towards design.
Well,
now, I'm not saying I'm not applying a God of the gaps or anything like that. What I'm saying is that the laws of physics themselves seem to be finely tuned for a desired result.
So again,
in that sense,
are you done? Let me know when you're done.
Well, just about. What I was going to say is, in that sense, I would adhere to methodological naturalism with regard to the laws of physics. What I'm saying is that the laws of physics themselves seem to be indicative that life was desired.
Okay, so if I give you a big number, it doesn't matter how big the number is. The number can be explained by design, like a coin that someone put on its edge, or it could be explained by chance, like a dice with like a million, the number of sides of whatever number you pick. Or I can pick a dice with twice the number of sides of whatever number you pick. So just saying big number could be explained by design, or chance, or determinism. Big number does not indicate any one of these more than the other. Like if I just say a trillion, is it more likely to be the coin, the dice, or the 2 trillion sided dice? Like which one is the most likely if I just give you a number?
Okay, let's go back to the Hugh Ross's analogy.
Let's answer my question. We need to stick to this. You need to answer.
Can you answer that, Tom?
Which is more likely? If I give you a number, it doesn't matter what the number is it more likely to be a coin on its edge, a dice with that many sides, or a dice with twice as many sides and 2 sides filed together? Which is more likely given the number?
Well, Tom, it's more than mere probability. It's probability with an intentionality for a desired result. And we see everything pointing to that result.
Going back to you got to answer the question, because this is the entire point. If I give you a number, it doesn't matter what the number is. 10 it could be designed. It could be intentional. Someone could have taken a dice with 10 sides, put it on the 10. Someone could have taken a dice and rolled it, and it landed 10. Someone could have taken a dice with 2 sides filed together that add to 10. So if I give you a number, 10, what's more likely, dice, coin, or dice with 20 sides?
I would say the dices that are, if they all line in such a row for a desired result, I would say that's a good indicative that it was intentional. Okay, and I understand you would rather go on chance.
No, I haven't said chance at all. So again, if you roll 10 dice, if we roll 10 coins and they all land heads, that's the same as rolling a 20-sided dice and it landed on any number.
Tom, can we talk about some more science instead of rolling dice?
Science.
I mean,
this
seriously.
Is all science. If you don't understand this, you don't understand science.
Yeah. Okay. I only go to college. Yeah. I'm sorry.
It's required for science. So again, it doesn't matter how many things you have in a row. If you have all like 6s, if you have 1,000 dice with all 6s, that's the exact same as having 1 dice with 1,000,000 sides. There's no difference. It's a gambler's fallacy. They are the exact same. Yes, so again, my question, which you still haven't answered, you've refused to answer because it completely undercuts your entire methodology.
No, I'm saying it's irrelevant.
More likely, if I give you a number, I can give you any big number you want. What's more likely? Was it a coin that someone deliberately put on its edge intentionally? Was it a dice with that many sides that just happened to roll in any one of its sides? Or was it a dice with twice as many sides, which happened to roll on the one that was filed together? Which is most likely if I just give you a number?
I would say the number that okay. Let's say the dime, the dice, and everything. If you give me a number and they all precisely go on that number.
No. This is there's not.
Oh, Tom, please.
There's not.
Okay,
there's no all. There's no all. There's no all.
Agree.
Just
you're
3
going
things.
back on your word.
No.
My goodness, you're a mess.
To the question.
My goodness.
There are 3 different things. They are not connected in any way. There is a dice on it. There's only one of these is a possibility. They can't all 3 exist. There's only one. Either it's a coin on its edge, it's a dice with that many sides, or it's a dice with twice as many sides. It can only be one of them. There's no interconnectivity to it. It's just one of these 3. Which is most likely if I tell you the number 1 trillion, 1 in a trillion?
Okay, so what that in essence is saying that it's blind probability. Am I correct?
No. So one of it's like the coin landing on its edge is design. That's someone deliberately put the coin on its edge. That's design. One of them is just a dice with that many signs, which is chance. And one of them is a weighted dice, which is determined. It's the most likely outcome. Those are the 3 possibilities. Mm-hmm. So again, I'm asking you, which of these 3 is most likely if I give you just a number, 1 in a trillion? Like, how does it indicate one more than the others?
Tom, okay, I understand what you're saying. What I am saying is that the number 1 to 1,000 Essentially, all you're doing is saying chance, determinism, or design, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and I'm saying that the probability is greater with design, and I've shown evidence for that.
No, that's the part you haven't. So you said big number, therefore design. So you still haven't answered my question. You still have not answered the one question I've asked the entire time, which is so simple and it makes you look terrible. You got to answer the question. Which is more likely if I just give you a number? 1 trillion. Is it more likely that it's the coin that someone deliberately put on its edge? Is it more likely that it was a dice that was rolled randomly? Or is it more likely that it was a weighted dice? What is more likely if I just give you the evidence 1 in a trillion? Which is more likely?
Let's go with the one. Let's go with the one on its edge. Now, since I answered your question, can you answer a question about mine?
Well, how? How is it more likely that it's the coin?
If it's on its edge, it would show intentionality because it's different than the others.
Well, no. Again, so it's one of these three. We don't know which one it is. All we know is there's 1 in a trillion. So we know that something happened that has a probability of 1 in a trillion of occurring. One of the possibilities is a coin on its edge. Another possibility is a dice with 1 million sides, and another possibility is a dice with 2 million sides that's weighted. If I just tell you that some event happened that has a 1 in a trillion chance of occurring, which one of those three is more likely?
Tom, I want to know how this refutes fine-tuning. Okay, scientifically, not dimes, not
I'm pretty sure it does. Pretty obviously. I'm not sure how to explain this to you exactly. But can you answer the question? So again, I'm going to
No, I'm sorry, Tom. You need to answer my question about the probability of finding a red dime if all the dimes were stacked to the moon. That shows clear intentionality. Your philosophical or personal objections are utterly meaningless. You provided no scientific data, no competing model, even after agreeing to a scientific debate. My friend, I don't know what else to tell you.
This is pretty simple. Like whatever the number U is, the dime analogy, give me a number. What is the probability? Just give me a number.
Let's just go with 1 in a trillion.
1 in a trillion. Okay, we have 1 in a trillion. So I'm going to tell you, an event occurred that has a chance of 1 in a trillion. A 1 in a trillion event happened. We don't know what it is, but we know a 1 in a trillion event happened. Now, it could be the case that somebody took a coin and put it on its edge. And the coin has a width of 1 in a trillion, so the chance of that happening is 1 in a trillion. Or it could be a dice with 1 trillion sides that you rolled and it landed on any side, because any side has a chance of 1 in a trillion of happening. Sure. Or it could be a dice with 2 trillion sides and 2 of the faces are filed together and it landed on that side, which was actually the most likely thing to occur by chance. So if I just tell you a 1 in a trillion event happened, which of these three is most likely to be that 1 in a trillion event?
You're wanting me to say either one. However, I'm not going to do that because, like I said, the 1 in a trillion probability would have to be connected to another 1 in a trillion probability, to another, and to another over 1,000 times.
No. Gambler's fallacy.
Forgive me,
guys.
We are going to move into the Q&A in just a few minutes. Want to let you know it's been a heated.
I'm sorry, Tom. I'm sorry. You could present no scientific evidence.
All right,
dice and coins.
We've got a lot of questions, so we are excited to move into the Q&A. It's been an exciting one. We appreciate that you guys got the energy and the passion, which is, like I said, I'd much rather it be late or say high energy rather than low. So we will now go to the super chats first. Danny Peterson, thanks for your super chat. They said, to James and company for the good work and debates. That really means a lot. Thanks so much for your encouragement. Second Best Bob said, hey James, your channel is fast becoming my favorite. You're welcome everyone, which is so cool. Thanks so much. Second Best Bob. We're glad to have you here. It means a lot. Also, the Crawdaddy quoting, he says, so I think this is coming after you, Travis. He says, quoting people gets you nowhere. You just shift your assertion without evidence to someone else's assertion without evidence. What do you think of them apples, Travis?
Ooh, okay. I would say, as a student, since I haven't earned my degree yet, I have to stand on the shoulder of giants. Okay, I can't appeal to my own authority. I go with prominent scientists that I admire and that do good work. I'm sorry, you disagree, sir.
Gotcha. Now he's coming after you with another jab, Travis. He says, Travis.
Uh-oh.
So this is again is the Crawdaddy 029 says, Travis, seriously learn the science. What are your thoughts, Travis?
Okay, well, I presented several scientific factors like, the correlation of the gravitational force constant to the electromagnetic force constant, and I simply disagree with him that I don't know science. I know how the constants work, so I'm just sorry Crawdaddy doesn't like me. Well, not really, but yeah.
Next up, we appreciate those super chats. And next one is Blake Boyles. Thanks for your super chat. He says, keep on keeping on, buddy. Well, thanks, Blake. That means a lot. We really appreciate you being here. Next up, Pine Creek. Old friend Doug. Glad to see you, Pine Creek. He asks, question, could Yahweh change one of the fundamental constants of the universe and still create life? If so, how is that fine-tuned for life?
Well, if he changed one thing, we would have to have entirely different laws of physics. We wouldn't have carbon-based life. So,
gotcha. Almost has sneeze. Okay. Next up, Pine Creek has another question for Travis. He says, what scientific evidence would Travis accept to conclude that there is no God?
Okay, so archaeological evidence of the body of Jesus. If we didn't have a Big Bang 13.79 billion years ago, if the universe had been static, that would pretty powerfully go against what it says in Scripture.
Gotcha. Next up, Dave Langer. Thanks for your question. He says, question for Travis. If you have a question for TJump, Travis, they love you. You got a following already. So if you have a question, we will put questions for TJump. We will push those to the top in case anybody has them, because we want TJump to get some action too. So
I'm good. I'm good. You can have all the questions.
Dave Langer says, Travis, could God have created the universe in a different way?
Yes, he could have, but life as we know it wouldn't be the same. We would, like I said to Pine Creek, we would have no carbon-based life. So he would have had to have had life. I mean, it would be totally different. So I think that he wants life the way it is. I mean, because that's the way it is.
Gotcha. Thank you very much.
Basically, that what we have now, it was his intentionality.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Travis. Danny Peterson, thanks for your question. He asked, why will Tom not answer? And it's Travis who needs to prove thing Tom believes in. Makes sense? Let's see. Let me just make sure
could you clarify?
What didn't I answer? I have no idea what I didn't answer. I thought I answered everything.
I think there's more. Hold on one second. I think there's more than one question rolled in here. I just want to make sure that I keep that apart if there is. So they say, okay, so they're saying, why will Tom not answer, and why is it that Travis needs to prove thing Tom believes in? I think they're saying...
James,
hold on. Well,
I think he's saying, why didn't Tom provide evidence? Maybe?
No, I did. I provided proof, actually. I provided some proof.
Well,
but I don't
fine-tuning, but...
Oh, I did. I just...
Of course you did, buddy.
Forgive me if you're out there, Danny. I'm not exactly sure what part you were referring to. We might come back to that one. Mind Onion, thanks for your question. They asked, what step-by-step experiment can we perform to show that the universe is fine-tuned?
The step-by-step would, as I mentioned to Tom, would be if time, as time and research goes on, we find more and more parameters that are exactly as they should be for life. And like I said, we're not going to have proof. You can't have absolute proof of anything, but we can have indicators and pointers.
Gotcha. Thank you very much. Next up, Everyone Needs a Smile. Question for Travis. You said
Okay.
minds could not emerge from purely natural means. Can you explain?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Oh,
Gotcha. Well, they were going to ask if you could explain, but it sounds like there might have been a misunderstanding.
Yeah, I never said, in fact, with regard to, is consciousness the same as the brain and everything? I'm a little agnostic on that, so I don't really take a position either way. But I do think it's a little interesting that in his book, Many Worlds in One, The Search for Other Universes, that Alexander Lincoln postulates that perhaps mind predated the universe. So,
Gotcha. Next, we just had a super chat fly in from none other than Sigifredo Sarabia. Glad to see you, Sigifredo. They asked, TJump, let's give you the 1 in a trillion for a single event. How do you explain the multiple events found in natural law without applying contingency?
Determinism, like you can do it without it. You can do it with a necessary thing. You just say unnecessary thing did these contingent things. So you can just ground it just like theists do in a god. Just make it grounded in a naturalistic thing like naturalistic pantheism. Like there's no problem there.
I had a good rebuttal to his naturalistic pantheism, but
if it comes up in another question, we may go over it. But just to get through as many questions as possible. Everyone needs a smile. We've got theirs. Thanks very much. Trevor Lund, thanks for your question. They asked for Travis, how have you falsified naturalism scientifically?
I haven't falsified naturalism scientifically. In fact, science works on methodological naturalism with regard to the study of a specific phenomenon. What I'm saying is, probability-wise, we see more evidence of design than purely naturalism.
Gotcha. Thank you very much. And we just had another super chat fly in from Subtracted. Thanks for your super chat, Subtracted. They asked, if the universe is so fine-tuned, why is it that most of the planets in the universe are uninhabitable and cannot support life?
I'm assuming that's for me. Actually, I think that, in fact, shows a greater degree of fine-tuning because it would show that life was intended for Earth and not for other planets. And in fact, if we didn't have these other planets, if we didn't have the mass density and all these things that we have, life on Earth would not be possible. In fact, all these other planets, you know what's special about Earth is with the magnetosphere, we see so much design in our planet and no other planets. I would say that, life was intended for Earth.
Gotcha. Everyone needs a smile. Question for TJump. What scientific evidence could realistically be discovered that would point exclusively to the existence of God?
Future testable predictions. So you just say, like, if I believe there is a God and if the God exists, I can make a prayer to him and he will give me a golden brick, and that's a future testable, repeatable prediction that works repeatedly. That'll be evidence of a God.
Gotcha. Thank you very much. Next up, Murdoch 101. Thanks for your question. Question for Tom. Oh, snap. Tom coming at you saying, quote, it could be chance. Begs the question. Big numbers are relevant if fine-tuning is very improbable under chance, but moderately probable under design. Fine-tuning, prima facie, supports design.
Oh, that's actually correct. But the problem is that there's no reason to believe that a God would design the world as it is now. You'd have to presuppose the properties of a God would conform to one that would make a world like this, as opposed to like an evil God who would make a world differently. And so the probability that the God who exists is equally as unlikely as the universe just popping out the way it is. You can just say it has as many variations as the universe. And so we just make stuff, it's just made up, essentially. The probabilities are the same, equally as random.
I have a good rebuttal to that, James.
If you make it very snappy, Travis.
Well, kind of snappy.
Like 15 seconds snap.
Oh boy. Okay, so with regard to objections on godlike omni-properties, maybe there's a greater God and so forth, an analysis of these kind of arguments, all Tom is doing is confirming that from our limited perspective of 3 dimensions in time, the nature of God would be unknowable, and I would agree. As the late Dr. Chuck Missler has stated, a God small enough for our own mind would not be big enough for our need. God wouldn't need to be the one to reveal himself to us. not vice versa. So that's absolutely no threat to theism whatsoever.
Well, that had nothing to do with my point, so I mean, okay.
Next up, we will go to this incoming super chat from Sigifredo Rabia. Thanks for your super chat. They said, no fine-tuning? What's biological teleology science?
Who's the question for?
Well, I never said there was. I agree there is fine tuning. I didn't say there wasn't. So.
Oh, okay. So you would concede it, but you'd maybe describe it or define it differently. Thomas, oh my goodness, how embarrassing! Thomas's internet appears to be struggling. Thomas, are you there?
Well, sorry, I lost connection. What?
No problem. So you would say you wouldn't deny fine tuning, but
fine-tuning is not evidence of design. Fine-tuning is just the fact that there's a really big number. It's really improbable given the laws that we know about that life would come about because it can only exist on a small spectrum of possible combinations of constants. But no, fine-tuning has nothing to do with design, which is why most physicists are atheists, and it doesn't indicate design.
No, they're not, Tom. We have great scientists on both sides. Why do you keep saying that? I want to see a study proving.
I just want to give them, forgive me, I'm sorry, Travis, just to make sure that the second question that they put in their super chat is, and they said, what's biological teleology science? So I think they're trying to say, like, hey, Tom, there's this branch of science that exists, and if you deny fine-tuning, which you would say...
Well, I don't. So fine-tuning does exist, it's just not indicative of a designer. So there's definitely biological teleology, but the teleology comes not from a designer, it comes from evolution, natural selection.
Next up,
I agree with evolution.
Just to get through the many questions, forgive me, Travis. I promise I'll try to give you more chances to respond, just to try to get through as one from each person. Mordak 101, thanks for your question. They said for Tom, saying, quote, it could be... oh, we did that one. Sorry, that's embarrassing. Phil H, thanks for your question. They said, the order of a deck, the deck of 52 shuffled cards is 8.06 times 10. I think they're saying to the 63rd power. Is that design? I think they're asking
Travis.
Okay. No, that would not be designed because it would serve no function. You would have to get card after card after card after card to be indicative of design. No, there would be no evidence of design.
Wait, so if the cards are all ordered by like ace, king, queen, jack, 10, or is that design?
It's usually put together by a person. So yeah, sort of.
Okay, I won't even say it. All right.
Bragg Nightwolf, thanks for your question.
Yeah, I tell you what, this guy's really getting on my nerves.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that.
It's kind of funny in a way, but
you wear your emotions on your sleeves. We appreciate that. Very few people will admit it. So, correct, Nightwolf, thanks for your question. They ask, for Travis, does he know what a post hoc rationalization is, and does he not think that his fine-tuning argument falls under post hoc?
So, yes, I know it's saying sort of after the fact, you go back and look at it. And I would say no, that I'm not, because that's just not where the evidence is pointing to, as far as it being post hoc, just rationalizing. Because everything in the universe is the way it is for life. So, no, I would just simply disagree.
Gotcha. Second best Bob, thanks for your question. They ask, can you ask Travis, is it possible that life became possible because of the universe, not that the universe was created for life? So I think they're maybe getting at this Anthropic Principle, if I'm not mistaken.
Could you repeat that, James?
So they're asking, is it possible that life became possible because of the universe, rather than the universe having been created for life?
Well, anything is possible. I would say it's unlikely. But that being said, I adhere to process structuralism, which is biological evolution, even the origin of life, through the fine-tuning. So do with that what you will.
Gotcha. We got Subtracted with the super chat. Thanks for that super chat. He says, hey, Travis, why does God seem so imaginary?
Because he is.
Travis?
Because that's
Okay,
your
go ahead.
personal view of them.
Gotcha.
Okay, Tom, was he asking me or was he asking you, buddy?
He's asking you, Travis. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I would say that's a personal opinion, which would pose no threat to theism and is simply irrelevant. What you think? Sorry.
Gotcha. Next up, Logo Steels, thanks for your question. They ask, for Travis, in the beginning you quoted Stephen Hawking saying, quote, philosophy is dead. But
Yes.
he says, but isn't saying that theism is more likely given fine-tuning a philosophical position?
Yes, as a matter of fact, he is correct. The reason I was stating, what Stephen Hawking did is because when Tom was appealing to the atheistic view of most scientists, that would undercut his position as an atheistic philosopher, because none of his philosophical arguments would work, because as Stephen Hawking said, philosophy is dead. I was using that as an example.
Next up, Paul James, thanks for your question. I'm trying to kind of get everybody's first question in at least before we go to the second ones from people, but we've just had a lot come in. So Travis, he says, for Travis, is 13.7 billion years a big enough number for Yahweh to create Adam? He says, sorry, Super Chat not working for me. No problem, Paul. Thanks for your question. So I can repeat that for you, Travis, if you like. I know it's scrambled. Yeah. He says, Travis, is 13.7 billion years a big enough number for Yahweh to create Adam?
Okay, well, I would say it wouldn't matter. If you have a causal agent of the Big Bang and the universe, time would simply be irrelevant because it would be transcendent of the time that it created. So it could be long enough, it could be short, it simply wouldn't matter.
Gotcha. Performance. Thanks for your question. Glad to have you here. They say, what's TJump's argument that science points to atheism or materialism, whichever you prefer?
Well, we only have evidence of material things, so it points to materialism because we have evidence of material things. But it doesn't point to that it's the only possible thing. There could always be more stuff out there, so science doesn't say anything about that. My position of an atheism is that nothing indicates a God, so we should just assume it's imaginary. But nothing in science actually disproves a God.
Gotcha. As I mentioned, trying to get to everybody's first question before we go to the second ones, as we've had a lot today. Iron Terrier Tier, thanks for your question. He said, if an asteroid hit Earth tomorrow, would that be an example of fine-tuning or design? That's from Travis.
Is that for me?
Yes.
Okay, well, fortunately, we have Jupiter in our magnetosphere that prevent a lot of that were, I would say, design. But if one did, I would say that's pretty good evidence that Earth is not designed.
Gotcha. And
I can see that, yeah.
Just because we have a lot of questions, and I want to respect the debaters' time as well as that. I've actually got to get to a quick appointment by the end of the hour, hopefully. Want to mention, did I miss a super chat? Sorry about that. Let me see if I can find it. Want to honor those. We really appreciate your guys' support as we are trying to grow the channel. We are also trying to do a lot more in-person debates. We are planning. This is provisional, it's not a certainty yet, but we are planning on a small debate tour in Texas this January.
Oh, nice.
And that would have a number of debaters that we are trying to reach out to schedule in-person debates with. TJump's debate with Stephen Worthy people seem to love it. I definitely loved it. It was a lot of fun. And so we're looking to do more of those. And that, your support of the channel helps us do that, as that kind of helps cover expenses and kind of helps us get to bring debate to not only on YouTube, but also on more, kind of bring it to people's neighborhoods, you could say, whether it be, I'm going to try to reach out to the Bible and Beer Consortium, and then as well as churches, to just kind of get that diversity of views out there. So, I want to also mention, we are very thankful as these debaters have had a lot of patience today in our technical startup. But we're getting better. We're learning together, and we appreciate everybody's patience in how we've kind of come along so far. And, maybe I did. I did miss a number of super chats. I'm so sorry. Forgive me. really quick, I just want to make sure that I don't miss these. Subtracted said, oh, we got that one. Dust Knight, thanks for your super chat. So sorry I missed it. Just trying to keep my attention kind of split as I'm listening to both the speakers. I'm always looking at that Tom's chair, and I'm thinking, oh, I wish I had a chair like that.
Yeah,
that's the famous chair. Whenever we had the live debate, people said, why didn't you bring Tom's chair, put it on the plane, have it travel with them, you put it on the stage, you can sit on it. So Dust Knight, he says, to the Christian, I once observed a leaf land in a spot in the forest. Is it his contention that the leaf landed by design in that exact spot?
Actually, I would say yes. He would control every molecule, every proton, electron, you name it, in the universe. So yes.
Gotcha. Thanks so much. Next up, Sigifredo Sarabia, thanks for your super chat. He said, why can't atheists call your argument, quote, evolution of the gaps? And the gaps has the dollar sign for the S. I like that. He's got some swag. He says, versus God of the gaps. If you simply say there's, quote, other explanations in science, and give quotes.
Well, I didn't say anything about evolution. This is about physics, but you couldn't say naturalism of the gaps because of induction. There's no such thing as naturalism of the gaps. It's just induction. If you say white goose, white goose, white goose, white goose, white goose, and there's a blank for what the next one is, it's reasonable to conclude the next one's going to be a white goose. So that's not a white goose of the gaps. That's just induction. But if you said the next one's going to be a black goose, something we've never seen before, and we discovered a white goose and said, well, no, the next one's going to be a black goose, and then we discovered another white goose, and the next one's going to be a black goose, that's a black goose of the gap. That's the God of the gap, because everything we discover is natural cause, natural cause, natural cause, natural cause throughout all of history. So it's reasonable to conclude the next one's going to be also a natural cause, which is not a naturalism of the gaps, it's induction. It's only a God of the gap because we've never discovered a God explanation before in the past.
Hey, Tom, real quick. So, are you saying that naturalism of the gaps is non-existent? I mean, it's not a thing. I'm just curious.
It's just induction. I mean, so you can call it that if you want, but it's just induction.
Thank you.
Gotcha. Next up, we've had a couple of them. Thanks so much for your super chats, friends. Also, we've had Sigifredo Sarabia. Oh, we got that one. Subtracted asks, how can we tell that Yahweh created the universe?
I'm assuming that's for me.
Yes, namely, how can we tell that Yahweh created the universe?
Okay, so that's actually a very good question. Okay, so when we look at different forms of, let's say polytheism, we have deities that are parts of the physical elements themselves and which exist in an eternal universe. And so it's the three monotheistic faiths that state that the universe had a beginning. I'm not talking about the cosmos, we'll just say the universe, which is what we see. So we're left with Islam, Judaism, or Christianity. And Islam was written some 600 years after the time of Jesus, borrows from a pre-existent religion of the Hebrew scriptures. So we're left with Judaism and Christianity. And I would say that true Judaism and Christianity are one and the same. Therefore, it would be the Judeo-Christian out of the Bible.
Gotcha. Thanks so much. Next up, Edgar Akura. Thanks so much for your super chat. We appreciate that. And your question, which is, why does an omnipotent God need to fine-tune a universe that's over 99.999% unlivable?
Well, okay, I would say that it shows an intentionality for life to be here. And, you know, what's interesting is I think in this instance, theology would outweigh philosophy. For example, God would be under absolutely no obligation to answer philosophical or personal objections like why this, why that. It is because that's the way he willed it.
Gotcha. Thanks so much. With that, appreciate everybody's questions. I hate wrapping up, but just to respect the debater's time, as I mentioned, make it to an appointment that I was hoping to make before the end of the hour. We will wrap up and want to say thanks so much for being here, friends. Whether you be Christian, atheist, Republican, Democrat, we are glad that you are here. It was not.
Did you just say Democrat?
It was not a Freudian slip.
Freudian slip, buddy.
Not a Freudian slip. Oh man. I was actually, for some reason I was thinking, I was like, should I mention libertarian? And wait, no, it's not anything against libertarians either. We are glad to have you here. No matter what your view is, we hope that you enjoy these debates. We hope you feel welcome. We strive for that, and we strive to hopefully have fair debates. So with that, really can't say thanks enough to the debaters. The debaters are the lifeblood of this channel. I could not debate as often, and actually do anywhere near what the debaters do. If I try to do it, I don't know how TJump does it. TJump does, I think, the debates you see on Tom's channel, those are just the ones he records. That's only half. I mean, he does, also another debate each day just on his own that he doesn't even put online. So I made that up, but you never know. With that, I want to say thanks so much for being here. We appreciate it. Keep sifting out the reasonable from the unreasonable. And forgive me. Tonight at 9:30 p.m., there's going to be a debate. Nephilim Free was called out by Robert from Sentinel Apologetics. So Robert is coming at him, and he's going to say, "Hey, Neph, you are so wrong. Christianity can
get him, Rob."
So he's going to say that Christianity can support aliens within its own worldview. It could say be theologically consistent, and we will have an atheist present who will be asking tough questions as the atheist interlocutor. So that will be a lot of fun. Thanks for being here, everybody, and we'll hopefully see you tonight at 9:30 p.m.